Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for April 30, 2022, the Shareholders Revolt edition. And we begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal as Credit Suisse shareholders revolt and refuse to clear executives of liabilities for some of the financial disasters which have occurred to Credit Suisse over the past year. In what is normally a routine vote to insulate bank officials from lawsuits, 60% of the shareholders voted against Credit Suisse from discharging executives from legal liability. The binding vote prevents executives from liability, prevents them from excusing liability from the Archegos Capital and Greensill matter. So interesting to see the shareholders of Credit Suisse really take revolt. Next up, also from the Wall Street Journal, this time from the Risk and Compliance Journal, Dylan Tokar reporting that Latvia is looking to rebuild its reputation in the face of Russian sanctions. Its banking sector was once viewed as a hub for dirty money flowing out of Russia. Now, with the EU and U.S. imposing an array of economic sanctions, it is facing a new challenge, proving it can enforce the sanctions measures. The company is one of a number of Baltic and Nordic companies on the front line in the economic war against Russia. Many businesses in those countries have long-standing ties with Russia, and banks that service them are grappling with thorny questions about how to navigate the increasing complexity in prohibited sanctions. So it's going to be interesting to see if Latvia can actually make a comeback. Next up, from the Wall Street, or rather Yahoo, reports that YahooFinance reports that the South African Corruption Committee has recommended that board members of a South African power company, Eskom, should face criminal prosecution for a string of culture of corrupt practices which occurred during the presidency of President Zuma. So it's going to be interesting to see, once again, if South Africa can really finance itself. And finally, Deutsche Bank is back in hot water as it is searched by German authorities over suspicious activity reports regarding its money laundering operations around Russia and other countries which are under sanctions. Deutsche Bank has had a series of regulatory fumbles and missteps over the past years, and this is just one more that Deutsche Bank is now facing. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not they can clear this hurdle, this time with the German regulator led by BaFin. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.